You're like, please don't switch it out.
So, have you thought about yoga or mindfulness because you were super stressed out and you were looking for a tool that is going to help you reclaim your time, reclaim your energy, reclaim your sanity? If so, we are going to talk about it today. And I have a very special guest with me today who is going to talk about it. My name is Giovanna, and I help busy women reclaim their time by setting boundaries and using mindfulness strategies like yoga, breath work, and meditation. So, for my guest today, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Hello, my name is Kellyn. I am the founder of Embracing Ease with Yoga. I'm also an educator and a mother, and I love travel.
All right. So you and I first came across each other because I too am in education. And so educators tend to be in the same sphere on Instagram, YouTube, whatever. And we kind of connected that way. Um, but since we're talking about yoga, would you kind of tell us how, as an educator, you got into yoga?
So going back,
Way
to when I first was introduced to yoga. I was already teaching. I was a parent. Um, I had like knew about yoga off and on, but I was introduced to this studio that was in our local city, and they were offering restorative yoga classes. And as a mom and a teacher who was just I was done at that point. I wanted to kind of see what it was about. I didn't know about restorative yoga. Like I knew about yoga, but I didn't know about restorative yoga. And I just felt if I can get into this space, what would that do for me? And I
back.
tell you, I took that one class and it was over from there. Like I fell asleep in the class, let's just say that. The level of ease and peace that I felt, it was something I hadn't felt before. And although I took a chunk of time before I started really going full force with my own practice, that was my introduction to that pause, that rest, right? That being able to kind of restore yourself through this practice. And it was just, it went on from there. I bought a mat. The mat was sitting in my house, but it was
What's
kind of like that opener. It was that opener for me. It was that opener.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I remember years ago, I think I was first introduced to yoga in college because I was, at the time, I was studying Buddhism. And so there was a group on campus that would meet and meditate. And so from that, I branched out and started kind of dabbling in yoga and then stepped away from it. And then life later, years later, I came back to the practice because I needed that pause, I needed that hiatus, and I needed that time to go um, inward. And so when we're talking about yoga and mindfulness, a lot of times it's funny that you say you fell asleep in class because most people when they think about yoga, they're thinking about, down dog, warrior pose, warrior two, do this, do that, put your leg up here
Yeah.
and to have the space to be able to release and to actually fall asleep. Can you talk a little bit more about that process within yoga and what you think that can do as a tool for educators?
So when it comes to restorative yoga, more or less, that is a practice that's meant to help you rest and digest, so to speak. That's, the words they use in training. The point is to get you to, in some sense, heal yourself, right? In that rest. And I think now it's something where people are like, okay, yes, you need to rest, rest, rest. And, radical rest is definitely becoming more well known, right? But when it comes to educators, we're so on the go. We've got our kids in the classroom. We have what we have going on at home, and there is no time to pause. There is no time to rest. So, if educators can at least give themselves 30 minutes or an hour to engage in restorative practice, it gives the body just a little bit of time to kind of heal itself from everything that we're dealing with as educators. And it might not be the quick fix that I'm sure many educators are looking for, but it's a start to something, right? And I think as you start with your body, it starts to get to your mind, right? And
Mhm.
as you start to think a little bit deeper and a little bit bigger about what you want for yourself and what you want for your life, right? Like things start to change as an education professional. So even if we're on go all the time and we might incorporate a class or two into our lives, right? It starts to open up a lot of larger branches of thought on rest, on taking time for self, on not letting burnout be your guide, right? Like
Mhm.
kind of looking inward a bit. So, restorative yoga can be such a great tool for educators. And I think it helps us to just, in the moment, stop, right? It just helps us to stop because we're so on the go, right? Whether it's home or at work, we're on the go. And so for me, it has helped in tremendous ways. Um, and I just hope that, others can kind of catch on and stop, right?
Yeah, and I think it's, for educators, it's kind of like I think for those of us who are passionate about it, it's kind of like a grassroots thing. You start with where you are and who you know, because you and I went through the same training. We found out through speaking to each other, we went through the same training, and it's with a company that focuses on certifying teachers because it's was created by a teacher who knows the stressors and all the stuff that educators go through. And she thought, if I can help educators embrace this tool, as educators, we always want to share our knowledge. So we can share that with the other adults in our building, with the students in our building, and share these very important tools of reflection. I am teaching yin yoga right now to teachers here in Brunei. And one of the things that they all say is just how grateful they are just to have the time. You know, yin yoga is just letting gravity do its work, opening up yourself physically, emotionally, and then we journal for a bit afterwards. And, again, both of us are in high stress positions. I'm in K-12, you're in higher ed. So for those who may not know, can you talk about maybe some of the stressors that higher ed has that maybe K through 12 doesn't have?
So, in all honesty, I started out working in my career in preschool, in early childhood education, and that has a certain level of stress that I don't think many people even think about.
Hmm.
Whether it's maintaining standards, accreditation, licensing, you have to deal with the health department, you have to deal with everyone.
Mhm.
In our state, like, you have to deal with the state licensing people, accreditation people, your local, people, and then on top of that, parents. And on top of that, your peers in the classroom, right? Like,
Mhm.
honestly, to me, the kids were the cherry. Like, they were, like, the best part of the
Mhm.
experience, right? So,
Yeah.
there could be a lot of stress in early care and education. Now, as someone working in higher ed to teach said early childhood educators, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I mean,
Mhm.
on top of my usual, my work with teaching classes, doing grades, and I don't teach one class a semester, like, I'm teaching 5 or 6, and so
Mm,
that's a lot of grading. That's one, right? Syllabuses, putting together weekly content, teaching the class, and then on
mhm,
top of that, committee work, right? Whether it's, this committee, that committee, hiring committee, whatever committee it is. Then you've got your staff meetings and then your faculty meetings, and it's just nonstop. Nonstop.
mhm.
And if you advise like a club or you advise an organization on campus, like you have that as well. So there's a lot to it. But this semester, I find one of my biggest stressors is helping my students find spots to do their observations and their practicums because there are a lot of programs that are like, well, we don't want you here. Or, it's rather interesting to me how we need people in the field, but people aren't willing to open their doors for new
Right,
teachers or upcoming teachers to learn the craft. So
right.
it has been a very interesting semester. It is my semester of radical rest, and so I'm refusing to stress out. Refusing. So, I'm really trying to help my students find different ways to approach things, and I'm like, "If this doesn't work, guess what? Let's try here. That doesn't work, let's try this. This
Mhm,
program, they're not letting you do your observations. Okay, guess what? Find another site." Like, we're
uh-huh,
we're finding different ways to do things, and I think that with all the stressors that come with it, I myself, I am looking at ways to reduce my stress, and I've reduced it tremendously.
mhm.
Um, I've reduced it tremendously, and it feels good. It actually does feel good. But there's a lot that comes with working with children, and there's a lot that comes with working in higher ed with adults because they're also facing a lot of challenges, right? Especially those who are parents themselves, they have to work full time, like,
Right.
lot in that sense, and then those who I have one of my classes, most of my students are straight out of high school. So now
Mhm.
having to support that as well, right?
Right.
It's
Oh,
been
man, what a yeah, spectrum.
a big spectrum, but it's a beautiful spectrum to see when it comes to the young people because they are excited.
Mhm.
And for me, excitement is promise
Yeah.
because, okay, we have people who still want to do this work. And I think that's important, right? A lot of them are like, well, we want to work in public school. I'm like, that's okay too. That's okay too. Whatever it
Mhm.
is that you want to do, if you want to become an educator, I'm going to help you get there. Right. So
Mhm.
it's the promise of we have people who are still interested in doing the work that we're doing, even though it does seem like a thankless job. So
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it does seem that way sometimes, and that is really promising because, the news that we hear is, teachers leaving, um, and it is important work. And so it's one of those things where it's important, it is stressful, there's a lot to it. And so having the tools necessary to avoid burnout is of ultimate importance. And speaking of that, can you talk a little bit about was there like a pivotal moment that you remember that made you really prioritize your well-being over doing all the things as educators tend to do?
I think COVID was kind of like step 1, right? The pandemic was step 1. I think in 2020, I just it was a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it was a lot. Like, having to have the kids here, them doing work,
Mhm.
my work being here, it was a lot. Like, every day just felt like work and lots of it. And my kids' old playroom, which is this, I was like, "I'm gonna turn this into my office." And before I even got to that, there was, like, a spot in here where I would
Mhm.
lay my mat every single day, and I'd get on it, and I was like, "Whether it's just to lay here and meditate or do my practice, I'm going to do something. I'm gonna get on this mat." And I did that. throughout COVID, right? Then when was it? I'm gonna say 2021, 2022, I started prioritizing myself more
Mhm.
because I felt A, I had gained a lot of weight that I wasn't even mindful of it. I mean, during the pandemic, like, we were eating
Right.
good in here. I mean, we were living life. It was like, we were stressed out, but we were living life. We were eating. I was cooking all types of things. It was Taco Tuesday every day. Like, we were living, right? And so things caught up with me. The stress caught up with me, the weight
Mhm.
gain caught up with me, and I was just like, "I don't feel good. I don't feel good," right? I physically did not feel good, and I was like, "Something has to change." But it still wasn't clicking in my head, okay, what the change was.
Mhm.
Time went on. I was introduced to this wonderful yoga program, right? I took the program, and honestly, over that period, it was just things were just opening my eyes on a different level that I don't even know where to begin with that. Like, just my eyes were beginning to open with respect to looking at myself, how I wanted to feel, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to show up for myself as well as others. And it was just that sense of you need to do something now, or
Mhm.
things aren't gonna end well for you, right? So I was doing my training, and you've taken the training. It's very eye-opening.
Mhm.
You have a cohort of people that you're also working with, and it's the support, it's the lessons, it's being able to using my body in
Yeah.
a way that has purpose, right? Then I got hit with a sledgehammer in the spring of 2024, and my dad's health was failing. And I think for me, it was a matter of if you don't take care of yourself now, bad things will probably happen to you. And so I just started really taking care of myself and stopping the things that I didn't want to do, right? It was a matter of you are first. So it was a combination of so many things. It was therapy, it was the yoga, it was my dad's health failing, right? That was just giving me the opportunity to take a look at myself and what I wanted for my future.
Mhm.
And it just turned into something really beautiful. And being able to look at myself and say, "You are first here. You matter here. Your time matters, your rest matters, your life matters."
Mhm.
It just put things on a whole 'nother trajectory.
Yeah, I think, you talked about just lying on the mat. And I've done that as well. When I was trying to build a regular practice, because when you're trying to build that practice in the beginning, it's so difficult because lay down and be still. What I could be doing this, I got this to do. But sometimes it's not even that you're doing a flow, it's just that you're taking 5 minutes for yourself to lie down on that mat, to sit on that mat, um, and go within. And so I think, can you kind of speak maybe to the importance of taking that pause in whatever short time frame you can in the beginning, and the effects of that?
It's so important to stop. And I think some of us we're ready to be on go all day, every day, right? And there's something beautiful in pause. There's something beautiful in just resting. And whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just take a pause, right? Get on a mat if you can't get on a mat, right? sit at your
Mhm.
desk, put your head down, but pause, right? It gives your mind time to just stop. It gives your heart time to rest, right?
Mhm.
What we don't realize, it's the things that are happening in our bodies constantly when we're on go. It eventually makes us ill. And by stopping, we're giving our bodies, our hearts, our minds time to just rest. And in that rest, you don't even have to think about anything. You don't even have to meditate, right? You're just stopping. And in that time that you're giving yourself, you can just breathe and have
Mhm.
steady breath, right? And you're not on go, and your cortisol levels aren't going through the roof. And
Mhm.
like you're stopping. And I don't think people see the value or realize the value in just stopping, right? It gives you time to just be. And in a society that tells you it's important, just go, 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 you need to just stop for yourself and just be for yourself. I don't care what you have to do. As long as
Mhm.
there's no chicken in the oven or food on the stove or chow hanging from somewhere, right?
Mhm.
Falling down the stairs or something, just stop. Just rest. Just pause and take care of you. You don't need an hour. You don't need, all day, but you need
Mhm.
just a few minutes. Because that few minutes, starting with that few minutes, you'll begin to see the value in, okay, hey, this 5 minutes was good. Maybe
Mhm.
10, maybe 20,
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
30, ooh, 40, 45, an hour. Ooh, okay. This
Yeah.
feels good,
Yeah.
right? So I don't want to tell people, hey, you've got to do an hour of this and you're going to be great. Like, you start with what you can start with.
Mhm.
You take care of yourself because that little 5 minutes can trigger something that'll
Yeah.
last you so much longer and actually change your life. So
Yeah.
start small.
And it's a practice, right? Because we're practicing whether we want to or not. It's just, what are you practicing? Are you practicing building up to high blood pressure? Are you practicing building up to a heart attack? Are you practicing building up to, broken relation? Like, you're practicing. And so this is a practice that can actually help you and bolster the good things in your life, just starting with that 5 minutes. And it's so important because people, have this idea of what yoga is, and who does yoga. And so I think that's why it's so important for, Black women, women of color, women who, nothing, against people who are naturally thin or whatever, but,
The big
you know,
girl.
okay, like, I'm not like this, and, I can't wrap my legs around anything, and, people with osteoarthritis can do yoga. It's for everyone. It's a practice that has so many benefits, and once you start that practice, it it shows you your strength, both physically but also mentally and spiritually. There's so many things that you connect with, but just starting with connecting with yourself, that radical self-care of putting yourself first, so that you can help your family, so that you can be, a good teacher if you're a teacher. But you can't do that when you are slowly dying because you're running yourself into the ground.
No, literally, literally. I feel like we're so used to running on empty and helping others when we're depleted, we're not realizing by stopping, right? Filling our cup, making sure we're whole, helps us to help others. And sometimes people might find it selfish, or other people might say, well, you're being selfish. Well, I'll be selfish for
Mhm.
a little while because
Yeah.
I can't help anyone if I can't help myself, right?
Hmm.
So if it means being selfish for a little while, you have to do that. You have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was a principal, it's like it's ingrained into educators that you have to be a martyr. Like you have to sacrifice yourself, or else you don't care about the kids if you are not running yourself into the ground. And so, and so, like, when I was a principal, I was very, and that's really what led me to get the certification, was so that I could be equipped to help my teachers, to give them a tool to help them de-stress, to help them live happier, healthier lives so that ultimately they could do their best work in the classroom. And I used to get on the intercom at the end of the day, tell them the day is over. Go home. Go
Mhm.
home, do something, walk your dog, see your kids, something. And, they would go, but I'd always have a couple of them that were still in that room. And I'd have
Mhm.
to run
Mhm.
around and be like, okay, I see you in here. You got to go. You got to try to, you got to go home. And so it's just that culture of martyrdom is something in education that really needs to change. And part of that is boundaries, right? So, what advice would you give to educators who are struggling with that concept of prioritizing self care and not wanting to seem selfish? You gotta think about it because we were both in that boat, right?
I always think about, if you, not to sound grim, but if you dropped dead tomorrow, what what would that mean? Like,
Mhm.
what would that literally mean? Because for a lot of workplaces, they'll just find another you.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we have to be grim, unfortunately, for them to wake up. And I'm in a space of, I could tell you radical rest is important and stopping is important, but it's not until there something has to click, right? For you to be like, oh, oh, yes, you're right, right? And so if you dropped, they would walk right over you. I've heard of teachers working up until they have dropped. I've heard of teachers who've had, unfortunately, terminal illnesses and have worked up until the day they've dropped. And that for me is a no.
No,
It's a
no.
no. And so I try to tell people, set your boundaries, because if you are not there, they will find another you. You
Mhm.
are there working yourself to death. For what? For what?
Yeah.
Right? And unfortunately, a lot of our teachers, they have it in their minds that if they don't have this job, they don't know who they are, right?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
if they don't have this job, they'll never make that type of money, or they'll never have insurance, or they'll never have this, and they'll never have that. But you are coming equipped with so many things. You can find a job tomorrow,
Yeah.
okay? You're an educator. You can literally find a job tomorrow. It's I think we have to start with the fear, first of all, because a
Mhm.
lot of our educators they're afraid of this, they're afraid of that, they're afraid of a lot of things.
Mhm.
Once that fear goes out the window, they can set boundaries. I think a kind of an eye opener for some people is, do you want to drop dead on that job? Is that a
Yeah.
fear? Because is that a fear? Because if that's
Mhm.
the case, set your boundaries. Because if you
Right.
don't, that's what will happen. That is
Mhm.
literally what will happen. And these people will walk right over you.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like, that unfortunate, I can't remember what company, but the woman who was dead in her cubicle for several days and nobody knew. And it's just crazy. And, I keep talking about this book that I read a little bit ago, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mere Mortals. And, that puts it in perspective, right? Like the average person is alive for 4,000 weeks. And so by the time, you're at my big age, in my 40s, Like, you look at how many approximate weeks you have left, how many Mondays do you really have left? And that puts it in perspective. And you can see that as grim or depressing, but it's really freeing because it forces you to think about what's really important.
Yes.
It
Yes.
allows you to let things go because, in the grand scheme of things, in however many Mondays I've got left, however many weeks I've got left, does this thing really matter? And if it doesn't,
Keep it moving.
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely keep it moving for sure. For sure. So, we're also SEL facilitators through our program. So, can you talk a little bit about how yoga and mindfulness practices benefit social and emotional learning in the classroom for the educators who are watching?
So that was the topic for last week in class. Yay. So okay, I'm pumped and ready to go. So with respect to social emotional learning, one of the biggest lessons I start with is for teachers to work on their own social emotional learning. There is no way you can help a child master their emotions, figure out how they feel and what they feel and how they want to express themselves if you don't know it yourself, right? And
Mhm.
so start with yourself. Start with understanding who you are, what you're feeling, what these feelings are, what they mean, and how you can express themselves, right?
Yeah.
If you're feeling a certain way, making sure that you're expressing it in a nonviolent way, right? You're not yelling at people and, all of that, but you're expressing it in a way that is effective, yet you're setting a boundary, yet you're being assertive, right? So being mindful of your own well being, being mindful of your own feelings, right? It all ties into understanding your own social and emotional development. And I know for some of our educators, they're looking like, well, I'm an adult. I already no. We need to work on ourselves, right? Because a lot of us do have a hard time with it. And a lot of us, you know, we're not that we're stuck in that perpetual childhood, but there are just some things that we haven't addressed, right? And
Right.
there's some things that we haven't been able to voice or know the right words to even use. And so having a grip on understanding what you feel, how you feel, and how to express it, right? That helps you in turn to be mindful, and self-reflection is a lot is a deep part of that. And I find even in my work in higher ed, a lot of students have a hard time with reflection.
Mhm.
And so starting with yourself as an educator, right, helps you to help your student. You're helping yourself and you're helping them at the same time. And there's nothing like everyone kind of having an aha moment at the same time, right? Because we can move forward as a class, we can kind of build the things we need to build as a class if we've done our own self reflection and we've come together in understanding who we are and how we can express ourselves.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I really like about meditation is that you can take those few minutes and slow down, take a pause, and just notice the thoughts that are in your mind, right? And I've got, for those of you watching, a freebie called Slow Down Sis. It's a mindfulness mastery toolkit, and it has some quick exercises that will walk you through baby steps of mindfulness. And it has some links to some meditations that I have done that are for beginners. You can also check me out on Insight Timer. I'm a teacher on Insight Timer as well. So I really, tout the benefits of meditation as a simple way that you can start that process of looking within, starting, to reflect and to have that tool that you can really call upon at any time, right? And so, aside from meditation, can you kind of talk about ways that educators and other professionals can kind of incorporate yoga or mindfulness practices into their daily routines if they say, you know what, Kellen, Giovanna, that sounds all good and everything, but I don't have time for all of that. I really am busy. I really don't have time. So, what would you say to that?
So for me, like, I think the biggest thing is to start with if you're still in bed, right? Because we're all in the bed at some point.
Mhm.
So if you cannot get to your mat, give yourself 5 minutes in the bed, right? It doesn't have to be anything major. Maybe do some cat cows, get into child's pose and just rest your head, right? Just rest your head and give
Mhm.
yourself just 5 minutes. You don't even have to get out the bed yet, right? You don't have to get out the bed yet. You're still in bed, right? Just turn over,
Mhm.
get on your hands and knees, do some cat cows, right? Give yourself that good stretch, right?
Mhm.
You get into child's pose and just put your head down, maybe put a pillow, just rest your head, and just take your mind away. Take your mind away. That's all.
Mhm.
You don't even need to get to the mat at that point, because I know some people, "I can't get to the mat. I don't even have a mat," right?
Right.
I don't have a mat. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have a bolster. I don't have blocks. I don't have straps. I don't have anything. Okay, you can do it in your bed.
Yep, you
You
sure
do
can.
it in your bed, right? And let's say you do wanna take it to the mat and you don't have props and things like that, right? The official props. Okay, you have a cushion? Use your cushion as a bolster, right?
Mhm.
You have a robe? That tie from the robe? That could be your strap.
Mhm.
You don't have blocks? Get some big books, right? There are ways to make it work. And I think because in our head, like you said, we're so used to that vision of the yoga teacher doing these things and, them looking a certain way or having certain equipment. I think we need to go away from how things look to how they feel, right? How do they feel? You don't need all those props. They're helpful, right?
Mhm.
But if all you have is just you and your body, guess what? Work with what you have
Mhm.
and see how you feel. Because that's the catalyst to moving things forward and making your practice consistent, right? Starts.
Mhm.
We're not saying, hey, go out, get a mat, get this, get that. Like, start small. And if
Yeah.
that means starting in your bed, you start in your bed, right?
Mhm.
Start in your bed and you work on yourself, you work on your body, you work on your mind, and you work on your spirit, and you take things from there, right? Because that feeling that you're going to have, that is a feeling that is absolutely priceless. And I don't even know how to describe it, but I know for me, it has changed my life. And
Mhm.
even down to my monthly cycle, like it has changed my life in ways that I don't even know where to begin. I've lost weight, like, just headaches that I used to have. It's just it changes so many things within you that it starts to pour out.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to give ourselves time. The
Mhm.
time you take to rest, the time you take to reflect, the time you take to take care of you
Mhm.
has wider effects, and you need to start somewhere.
Yeah, and what you said about how it feels versus how it looks, I think that's like a big shift and a big change because I remember years ago, I think that was one of the reasons why I didn't get as into yoga as I could have years ago because I had in my mind, well, I don't look this way and I've never been particularly flexible and, all of that. And so when I shifted from how it looks to how it feels, that was really the game changer for me, is that part for sure.
I
For
think
sure.
I think honestly, when it comes to yoga practices, and I mean, I've been in some classes. I've been in vinyasa. Like over the summer, I took some vinyasa classes in Spain. And I mean, shout out to Giselle. She made me work. She made me work. But what I loved about her classes, not only did I get to improve on my Spanish skills, but she would always say poco a poco, right? Like little by little. So it didn't matter that I was the big girl in class. I didn't care. I loved the way it made, I mean, she made me work, but at the end of class, I loved the way I felt. I
Mhm,
mean, it was just a feeling of this is your body and you can do so much with it. And it
mhm.
just felt good. It felt good, right?
Yeah,
And now I'm back home. You're not catching me in any vinyasa because I am in my restorative phase.
right?
But every now and again, if I feel like doing a little something faster pace, I know that I'm capable, right? When
Mhm,
in the past, I'd be so afraid. I'd be so afraid because I'm like, I can't keep up. I can't do this. And we're
mhm,
so focused on the can't. We're not looking at what we can do. And I think
mhm,
that's the reason why some people are afraid. Like they're afraid of how they will look, right? Like, oh
mhm.
no, I don't think like I can, I don't want people to see. Okay, guess what? I'm be there. Booty up in the air and everything. I don't care.
Right,
Right?
right.
'Cause I know it feels good to me, right?
Mhm,
And I think, again, that fear that people have prevents them from doing important things. It helps them from getting to the places that they need to be, and I honestly hope that in the work that you're doing and in the work that I'm doing, like, it helps to open up the mind and the eyes of some people to do the deep self-care, right? Many
mhm,
people think of self-care as you're going to the spa or you're getting a pedicure, but this is deep, deep self-care, and I feel like if people can really open up their eyes to doing some deep self-care, a lot of our lives could really change, and I think a lot of us might live a little longer and live a little more stress-free lives, right? But we have to do the deep work and not
mhm.
be afraid of what things will look like, but focus on how we actually feel.
Yeah, yeah. I that definitely resonates with me because I'm in my yin phase right now. But there's a local gym that does vinyasa. And so I go there pretty regularly now. But in the beginning, I was like, and then I made the mistake of mentioning to the instructor that I am certified. And he was like, "Oh, you should be teaching here too." And I was like, "Sir."
Hey.
But that was before, and now it's like I feel that it's one of those things like you're just saying, we've got to put it out there. We've got to show people, that yoga doesn't just look one way, that there are so many facets to it, and that it truly is for everyone. And it's something that we all need to embrace. And speaking of which, can you kind of talk about the work that you're doing to help people embrace ease and embrace yoga? See what I did there?
So I created my own um embracing ease with yoga practice. It is a virtual studio. Ultimately, the goal here is to help individuals. Like when I created it, it was with teachers in mind, right? I wanted teachers to be able to realize that they could embrace ease, right? They didn't have to just wait until the weekend and just breathe, but they could find little ways throughout the week to embrace ease, whether it's self reflection, journaling, meditation, pranayama, right? Like doing little things every day to kind of build that sense of ease within them, right? We all can't get to the spa. We all can't get that massage or that pedicure, that manicure, that facial, right? But if we can stop, every day 30 minutes, even a quick 15 minutes, right? To just take care of ourselves and do some restorative practice, do some, breath work practice, or even spend the weekend kind of in collective with other people, talking about what we're doing at work,
Mhm.
right? And how we can be better educators. I think it's something that can change the way teachers and education professionals see themselves and the work that they do, and how it can kind of change the lives of not only themselves but their students, but they need to start with them. And the point of me starting this was because I saw there were a lot of programs out there that were geared towards, hey, here's this yoga thing you can put in your classroom, or here's this yoga thing that you can do at work. But there wasn't something that I saw that focused on the teacher only.
Mhm.
We love the kids, we do.
Yeah,
They're
love the
precious,
kids.
they're amazing, they're beautiful, but the teacher needs to come first, right?
Right. Yeah.
We wanted to create something that was centered around the teacher. No kids involved. Um,
Mhm.
because, I was reading some articles and there was one in particular that said, unfortunately, this is how teachers do come to yoga. It's through introducing it to their classroom, right? So it
Mhm.
is research back that somehow teachers are wired that if they're going to do something, their kids better be involved, right? If they're
Mhm.
going to introduce something, they're going to get into something, their kids better be involved. And I just wanted to take the kids out of
Yeah.
and help them focus on themselves. This is your time. It is your precious time. If you want to do yoga in the classroom with the kids, great. But there is precious time for you. And it's
Mhm.
time for you to rest, time for you to heal and heal from within, right? And you can't do that if you're on go,
Mhm.
right? And so spreading the message, trying to spread it loud. I still have people who are like, "Well, I don't know about yoga," or "I don't know where to start." And I'm just like, "It doesn't take an hour. If you have 5 minutes or 15 minutes, start there." And I think it's just getting the message out there of stop worrying about what yoga is supposed to look like or
Right.
what you think it looks like, and focus on what it can be for you as the
Mhm.
individual. So it's just right now, just getting the message out there, getting people to kind of believe, right, that it is for them, because sometimes people don't think it's for them. And that's the hardest part, is to get people to realize it's for you and it's okay,
Mhm.
and it's gonna work for your body, right? I had an event I went to a couple weeks back, and some of the ladies were like, well, my knees, or I don't think I can do this because of that. And I'm just like, let's get on the mat and let's try, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it together. Let's work first. Let's work on some cat cows. Right?
Oh.
I always start with the cat cow, because once you get people moving in that
Yeah,
way, they're like, ooh,
this
ooh,
feels
that
good.
feels good, right? And from there, they can build up, right? They can build up, and they start to listen to their body. They're like, "Wait, I feel something, or I hear something."
Mhm.
And once you start becoming in tune with your body, doors open.
Mhm.
Doors open. And so just getting the message out there, reminding people to take care of themselves and put themselves first is just, it's a very important part of what I do. And actually, I sent out the newsletter yesterday, and one of the main articles were, creating a path to wellness, right? Like, what does that look like? It doesn't have to be something, outrageous. Even
Mhm.
going on daily walks can
Yes.
help to
Yes.
start you on that path to wellness, right? Like, for me, my essential oils, like, they are a part of my everyday. Like, I need my lavender at night when it's time for bed, my eucalyptus oil if I'm feeling pain. Hey, 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 right? And it gets you on that path to listening to your body and
Mhm.
doing what's right for your body. It doesn't have to be hey, get on this mat and do this. It could
Mhm.
just be just starting with listening to your body, taking a few minutes to journal what you're feeling, reflecting on what you're grateful for, right? And just taking
Mhm.
things slow,
Yeah.
right? Doing what's best for you in this situation, which is so important.
Yeah. Because so many of us are disconnected from our bodies because we're so busy running around in circles and doing this and doing that and feeling discomfort or stiffness or tension, and we just kind of stuff it down because we got to go do this, we got to, you know um, chair this committee, pick up the kids, write this paper, grade these papers. And so, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, all of these things are that pathway to wellness to get us to listen to our body, because our body tells us things, but a lot of times we're not listening at all.
Or we're so busy we can't hear,
Mhm.
right? We literally cannot hear. And I think for me, I've come to the point in my life where I am saying yes to myself and no to everything else. Even in my work as a reviewer of peer reviewed articles, I got sent one 2 weeks ago. No,
Mhm.
right? And I think coming from a place of always wanting to say yes and do all the things, it felt good.
Mhm.
It felt good, right? Like, when I said this was my year of no, people really thought I was playing, but this is my year of no, right? You're going to hear no. I'm saying yes to myself and yes to the things that feel right for me, and I'm saying no to everything else because if I
Well, you're
can't
setting boundaries.
exactly, setting
Yeah.
boundaries,
And you
setting
can't have a self-care practice, you can't practice mindfulness, you can't do any of that stuff if you don't have boundaries, because if you don't have them, people are always going to be pushing in on that time, and if you don't have the capacity to say no, then you're always going to be last or not at all.
then you don't get to listen to yourself.
Hmm.
You don't get to listen to
Definitely.
yourself, and it just starts that cycle of not caring for yourself or caring for what's happening to you, and then you start to break down, right?
Hmm.
Physically, mentally, spiritually, you just start to break down, and I know that's not what I want for my life, and that's not what I want for my fellow peers in the field, and so trying to find ways to help them to kinda think differently, it's I feel like that is where I'm at right now, and it feels good to kind of start with the people who are in my orbit, right? Like the people I
Mhm.
work with or the people who I've worked with in the past. It just feels good to kind of help them get that aha moment. So
Yeah,
it feels
yeah.
good.
Yeah, that definitely feels good to start doing that in-person stuff, and or that stuff to help people. Um, yeah. So your website is Embracing Ease with Yoga. Can you talk about any other ways that people can connect with you, and how they can work with you?
So you can also find me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, same name, Embracing Ease with Yoga. You can also find me on Instagram, Embracing Ease. Well, it's embracing underscore ease underscore with underscore yoga.
I'll put it all in the description.
But you can find me on social media. You can get onto the website, sign up for the newsletter. I'm not sending out weekly newsletters. It's just once a month. You get some, great information, and hopefully it's something that can be useful to you if you just take some time out.
Well, it was a pleasure to talk to you. As always, we're going to have to do it again for sure. So, everyone who's watching in the future, please check out her website, follow her on Instagram. She is a fantastic yogi, and I hope you get to experience what she has to offer so that you can feel the yoga and not be concerned with how it looks. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.